Apparently you're muted, Ince, but I'm great. I'm doing really, really well.
See, I knew it. I knew it. I knew something was gonna go wrong. Always one person is muted.
An hour in.
Yeah, there's always one person muted as I'm changing scenes. At least this time it's me. So it's not so bad.
It's very smooth. We fixed it very quickly. That's
everyone else.
Responsive production.
Chat, everyone else, like you can see them. The sounds are good now, right?
Yes. Oh, sorry. We can talk to verify that.
Yeah,
yes.
You can talk to verify that.
No, you can tell. You can tell I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how have you guys been? With Lethal, I wanted to ask how have you guys been? Since QPL, but Lethal has been around since he was casting also last KeenCon. How about you? What have you been up to?
Oh, thank you for answering my question.
Yeah. Sorry, you don't get to speak yet, Lethal. Do what Bruno says, okay? I'm all right. I'm all right. There's a lot of intense real life stuff happening. I was obviously at the Endpoint LAN at the end of last year, which was my last touch point really with the Quake community. But since then, it's been job stuff. I've got a 2.5-year-old, and I'm sitting on the outskirts or the fringes of esports, enjoying it as passively as I can.
How tall is your son?
He is not set to be as tall as me.
Oh,
he's going to be a little shorter, actually. In terms of the percentile that you have, he's something like 80 or 85th percentile, whereas I was like 99th percentile at his age. So but he's quite tall. He's quite a big kid considering.
I kind of feel like I'm half the height of you anyway, so...
Yeah.
Well, we know that Bruno is, actually, so yeah, that's fair.
True.
Since we're, talking about QPL, I just want to get the QPL stuff out of the way as quickly as possible. I want to go with Lethal first. What would you have changed about QPL?
It's hard to say, really. It did feel weird going from just one event a year to, from multiple events to one event a year. I think what they did was the global leaderboard and not making it just region-based, which was good. But I think not having as many offline events did kill it a little bit in terms of like what could have been improved. It was a little bit of a shame, but obviously we know that of course there's always going to be budgets, there's always going to be bits and pieces here and there. But I definitely feel like maybe just having 2 or 3 offline events across the year would have been a lot more beneficial overall, just due to the fact that there's always something more to look forward to every single time. Because I think just with viewership on any esports title, where if you do have a very, very long season and then it leads up to the final, viewership can gradually decline over time, but then you do get that peak leading towards each final. So if there was like maybe 3 events a year rather than just the one, then it could have been different. Maybe it could have stayed the same, but it is what it is, really.
I think I agree on most things. What about you, Zoot?
So I don't have to play sort of politics here or anything like that.
No,
because I'm trying to
plus,
get to the events.
since QPL is done, there's no NDA on any of you anymore, so you can say whatever you want.
There is so much I would have done differently. Some of it would be, have a blank check, and this is all the brilliant stuff I'd love to do, but I know that wasn't the case. But there's just a lot of communication to start, like the fundamentals I would have started. The whole 5 months waiting between QuakeCon and the next part of the QPL, at least for the very late stages of it. I totally agree with what Lethal was saying as well. I think social campaigns, the way that you're promoting the players, the way that you're integrating with like the game product. So you have like the Quake Champions, and that's very much managed by Sinker, and then you have the esports on the other side, and it felt like they didn't really ever try to make a big effort to intertwine. There were some small bits here and there, but you couldn't play the dual format sort of within the game. You'd have to use an external thing made by one of the North American players in order to properly select your heroes and plan the heroes. Yeah, so I would have just found a way to, and again, the format, I really wasn't a fan of this format. I would have loved to have seen mirror picks and things like that, but I'm sure the people that are watching that are probably bored to death of me having discussed this in recent years. But I just think a lot more time could have been spent after year one to really think about, okay, how can we level it up? And it just didn't feel like that leveling up happened, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's for me where I am. Yeah, I guess I really just wanted a bit more at that point, and I didn't feel like we were getting it as a community.
Yeah, I guess like in the first year, it's how they established it was going to be, and they just kept it the same, basically.
Yeah, and sure they changed the amount of events and so on, but the format really didn't change as far as I know. Map pools changed a little bit here and there, but in my opinion, there was very little listening to the community or listening to even a whole bulk of pro players on feedback. It just felt like the easiest thing to do was to keep it going the same, and that's what they did. So, I know it's difficult to really keep things fresh and so on and so forth, but that's part of the game, right? If you're managing an esports product, you have to keep reinventing yourself almost, and until you find that perfect formula, which Quake champions never really found, even though the game itself started getting into quite a good shape, like a competitive shape at least, towards the later years.
What about game modes? Do you think maybe any game mode change would have been good?
So game modes, it's funny, to me it's like what happened to it is quite similar to what happened to Diabotical, apart from the fact that Quake has much more power as a franchise and a lot more people are interested in Quake just because of its legacy. It had too many game modes is the reality of it, so the community got segregated really early on. Do I think that it would be different if they focused maybe on CTF maps or a different type of mode maps, or they focused on the queue times, the loading times going down? I do think, though, reduce the amount of modes, maybe make it so people can queue for ranked and unranked at the same time or something like that. That could have at least added some longevity. It's not to say this is suddenly going to make Quake explode and forever be in the eyes of the entire world, but I do think it would have probably added a few more digits on Steam charts for a while and probably for a bit longer too. Sorry, Lethal, I'm monopolizing this.
No, it's fine. I can say, just get out your system. It's fine. Just get out your system.
You can tell, right?
I think what they could have also done is cater for the team players as well. Like maybe have a few tournaments on the sideline, not just at an offline event, just at QuakeCon or anything like that, but just overall. I know we had the Challenger League, obviously leading up to a spot in the QPL, but maybe having like a sacrifice sideline tournament or twos, like anything team orientated, because there's a lot of team players out there who aren't really their main priority isn't really in a dual format. They prefer like twos, fours, sacrifice, CTF, TDM, etc. And it wouldn't have to necessarily be broadcast on an official Quake stream. They could have had, we've got plenty of community streams which could have hosted that and just have a small prize pool, just to, again, like I said, just cater for other players who aren't the biggest fans or maybe not the best in a dual setting, but at least it will give them something to play for, because that way, as you may have seen, they would be pushed or left in the dark, so to speak.
That's a good point about team modes, really, because while I was always skeptical about twos, it did make some really fun event. I remember DreamHack Tours was a lot of fun. I would have loved to have seen maybe that experiment lasting a bit longer. It's difficult with fours because then he's like, we've got to bring 4 players per team to a LAN, and that becomes more and more expensive. But it's
and if you make 2 teams, that's it. We run out of player base.
All of the top level players. Oh shit, we're done.
Yeah. Since we're talking about twos, I actually want to spin the conversation a bit towards KeenCon, because I was told we're gonna decide the map pool of the next online tournament. So the next in a month. Yesterday was I think the 6th KeenCon online tournament, and there's gonna be the next one in a month, and after that's gonna be the LAN. And to choose the map pool of this next KeenCon, we're going to be deciding it on stream through our spin the wheel thing, basically.
Oh, really? I was going to say, you like taking it out of the hat.
And we've done that before, right? I think we've done some drafts early in the past by picking stuff out of the hat. So I'm just going to try to put it on the stream if I can. Let's see, please work. We are live, exactly where we left off. Need to confirm chat. Can you confirm if it's live again?
It is for moi.
Okay,
it's live.
It's live. Thank you.
I'm
blue screen of that.
Funding the stream.
All right, we're just gonna restart the map pool. And
Are
if
we
you,
starting it completely?
yeah. I mean, we had only picked one map, and I don't like Molten, so might as
Yeah,
well.
but we've actually done all of them. They just couldn't see.
It was molten 7 times, actually.
Oh, amazing.
Okay, I'm just gonna restart it, and we're gonna start out from here. And by the way, before we do this, I just want to announce as well, so that we start this with on a high note, that the 2 people here and me are going to be the official casters for the KeenCon LAN. So, cat's out of the bag, it's official. There's the announcement. Congratulations to the 2 of you for being hired for KeenCon.
I'm ecstatic. I get to do my 1 Quake LAN a year. This is fantastic. So I'm
Same, yeah, same.
honored to be picked. So it's exciting to see people. Yeah. I mean, I'm buzzing. And I've also never been to Spain, so
There you go. All right,
yeah.
let's do the map picks. Exile.
Molten, Deep.
No, Molten doesn't. In Deep, this is starting now again. It's gonna be Exile. We are completely restarting. It's Exile and please don't blue screen now.
Imagine a web page causing blue screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Exile, CK. He's obviously corrupted keep. Saying this for Zoot because he probably doesn't remember.
I remember that one.
Oh, Crucible. Crucible. This is a relatively new map that probably hasn't been played in 2v2 yet. So we'll have to see how good it is.
Isn't that like a really? I mean, it's
a
like
lava
small,
map,
but it's got like small corridors.
Yeah,
and things like that in it.
Yeah, it's very tight knit, so to
like
speak.
Cramps, right?
Yeah. I was worried it's gonna be Insomnia because I can't stand it.
Okay, next. Exile,
Maybe
CK, Crucible. Please not TTN, thank God. Okay, Ruins of Sarnath. It's gonna be the 4th map.
Right, how many maps? Is it 7 or 5?
7 maps. So 3 maps to go.
Ruins is a good map for 2s, in all fairness.
Ruins, classic. Absolute classic.
Next up, Veil. The Veil has been on every single map pool so far.
There we go.
I hate the map, but we're gonna put it again, even though everyone from KeenCon told me not to put it in. I put it in anyway, and it's picked. So 5th map, Veil of Nath. 2 maps to go.
Do people actually pick it though? Do people pick Veil though, even if it's in the pool?
Insomnia.
No.
It's gonna be this. Oh, this map is gonna be so cursed.
Oh my god.
This map is gonna be so cursed. Veil, Insomnia, and Crucible in. Oh, KingCon is regretting me. He's regretting letting me do this.
I've obviously not watched much of it for 2s, but for duels, it's just I just don't enjoy playing it.
Okay.
I had to Google Insomnia, and I do know the map, but I had no idea how that would play in 2s.
So 7 maps, right? Exile, CK, Crucible, Ruins, Veil, Insomnia, and Awoken. This is a very cursed map pool, and I apologize for everyone that's going to play next month. But yeah, good luck. Sorry, Wenger. No, I'm not doing it again. I know for sure Wenger has not played at least like 2 of the maps ever in 2v2, so it's going to be hilarious.
Restart the stream, I think. I think you just
restarted the stream, yeah. And since we're talking about this, we might as well check the ranking because I think it has been updated since yesterday.
Cool.
Yesterday, Rafa and Maxter won again, but since Cheaters, Cult and Sirius have won the first ones, they're still ahead by 3 points. Then we have Rail.
Bruno, explain to me what this ranking means in terms. Is this like
ranking,
a seeding?
Okay, the first 14 qualified teams will be qualified for KingCon.
First 4?
First 14.
Right.
It's going to be a 16-team LAN, and the first 14 are qualified to play. And then 2 of them, I think KingCon invites two teams.
Right, so 4 are auto-qualified, and then 2 more are like wildcard invited.
14 are auto-qualified.
Oh, 14 are auto-qualified.
Yes, so it's top 14 is qualified. And then KingCon invites 2 teams. And from these 14, top 8 also gets travel expenses paid up to 250 euros per player.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was that many teams, actually.
Yeah, quite a few.
You need to
different
get in
teams
a
on the play.
qualifying spot, mate. You're 15th. Just
We
need to
can't.
play
We
one
didn't
more.
play yesterday, and we aren't going to be able to play because Kubert broke his arm about a few weeks ago, so we will not be able to play anymore, sadly.
Surely
I do
you're
like the team,
not
man.
allowed to qualify though. You're not allowed to qualify though, I assume.
I was gonna play the first day. I might still, if I find someone else I want to play, I might still play if I qualify, I might still play the first day, and I'll leave you to guess with Lethal all alone.
Poor Zoot.
You guys all regret it, not me.
I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I guess all of the names here both of you are very familiar with.
I'm not familiar with your teammate at all.
Kubert, I was playing with RMV, before KeenCon, and then KeenCon announced they were gonna do stuff, and
right.
I decided I was going to play with NSZ, and I told RMV, oh, if I play with you, then NSZ doesn't have anyone to play with, so let's just both play. You find another teammate. I found Face for him to play with, and I play with NSZ. But then Face couldn't play anymore, so RMV had to find someone else, and he started playing with Ramis. And then after a while, NSZ said he didn't want to play anymore, so I had to find someone from ranked. And Kubert was the first person I found in ranked.
I'm surprised with the Maestro boys in 5th, but I'm just going to be assuming they've not been competing in as many tournaments. And I know Racing's been dabbling in CS. Yeah,
they got second place yesterday after beating. I think they beat the Celts and Sirius. Did they beat Celts and Sirius? Who did they beat? I don't remember. I saw the whole tournament and now I don't remember. But they got second place yesterday, despite not really having practiced much. Or I think they skipped like 3 or 4 of the tournaments.
Who's Thorny Vase?
Thorny Vase is Ved Medic.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Why did he change his name to that?
I don't know.
I didn't even recognise the name, because I looked and I was like, God, I've never seen Yenin play with that before.
and Killer with DeZero? Is that one of the Spanish players?
No, these are ranked goblins, basically. I mean, this is my team name, but yeah. These guys are just ranked grinders. I think Killer is like 15 years old. And
DeZero is a Spanish player, isn't he?
I'm not sure. He might be.
Is Chenzo still playing, or has he gone back to Splitgate?
He's still playing, yeah. They were playing yesterday. They got a few good upsets yesterday versus they beat Kilson and Navek, and they also beat RMV and Dramis, I believe.
Oh wow,
that's pretty good, pretty big for them. Okay, and now back to us. Let's see. Okay, everything is still working. It hasn't broken yet, so that's good. And no more blue screens.
I was wrong about DeZero. I remember the name DeZero. I thought it was on one of the all Spanish teams that he played on, but I must be misremembering. I can't talk.
Since you can't talk, Lethal, what is the most fun event you've ever attended besides KeenCons?
What, of any game or
of any game?
Oh, this will be interesting. It'll be a Halo event, surely.
It will be, yeah. I think it was just one event in, I don't know. I'd probably say there's one event in 06 where like I won all the events and I was just like happy about it because I think I spent like 18 hours a day every single day practicing because I made a tomfoolery of myself the event beforehand and I got really annoyed about it. So, and I was just like relieved that all that hard work paid off. But that was like 18 years ago, something like that, I think. Damn. But yeah, that's on. Obviously, you knew it was going to be a Halo event, but
yes,
yeah.
What about the worst?
The worst. Oh, yeah.
I would say go to Zoot about what's his favorite event. And
while you think about this, all right. Hey, Zoot, most fun event you've attended?
It's fun. I mean, almost all of them have been Quake events, so. Oh, I don't know. It would probably have to be one of the early ones when I had only recently become a caster. So probably my first DreamHack or my first Quake, where you finally meet people who like.
What was your first DreamHack?
It would have been DreamHack Summer 2012.
Really? That was also my first LAN.
Yeah, and I just remember this. I think a lot of people. It was quite a lot of people's first LAN at that point, quite possibly. And I just remember, like, you're meeting people. Everyone's excited to talk about Quake and so on. Obviously, there were some old pros, there that you get to meet them in person. And I think just that year, just 2012 itself, because I'm pretty sure I went to QuakeCon as well that year. It was just unbelievable.
I have a really funny
I
picture.
don't remember any casting at those events. I just remember the sort of feeling of being there.
I have a really funny picture from DreamHack Summer 2012, which was both our first LAN, so I think I'm gonna show it now. Do you remember this picture,
Right.
Zoot?
I don't know if I want to see it.
It's already on stream, so.
Wow, and there's you falling asleep for
Where
the
was
how
that,
great the
though?
conversation
That
is.
was at Harry's.
Yeah.
At the after party. They had an open bar at the after party, and I decided to do a vodka race against Pavel. It did not work out, as you can see.
Wasn't that DreamHack Winter? I thought that maybe I'm wrong.
No, I didn't go to DreamHack Winter. He looks like Avek. and Cypher looks like he's 12.
You can clearly tell that Ince is just like fully invested in the conversation, can't you?
Yeah.
I'm out, dude. I am so
his
out.
inebriation quite well there.
But yeah, but that was
Gone.
probably also the most fun LAN I've attended, because it was just open bar. Everyone was there. I remember telling people I was Cypher. When I got there.
You talk about the drinking, and I didn't mention anything about partying. I just mentioned like the vibes and the Quake and the sharing of passions, and you were like, I got messed up. It was crazy.
If I ignored the after party, the most fun LAN would probably have been either the Foundry or maybe the Adroids, because outside of casting, that LAN was also hilarious for me.
That was way too exhausting for me. I was thinking of saying that was one of the worst events, honestly.
For you, probably it would have been, yeah. I had a very different experience that LAN.
Yeah, you definitely did. Like, I enjoyed a lot of it, but the thing, most of the LANs I've been to, I've enjoyed a lot. But it was just such hard work, and I was going off like 2-3 hours of sleep a night. So yeah, the one in Enschede or wherever it was.
Yeah, Enschede.
Yeah, that was, and the relationship with the person running it, just bloody hell, it was really
yeah,
like quite toxic. So yeah, I struggled a lot at that event, and I'm trying to think of another one that could maybe rise to the occasion, but
of being the best or the worst.
Being the worst for me. And that's the thing, like, there's not been any catastrophic ones that I've absolutely despised, but yeah. I think I had some hard times at some later events, but they don't stick out in my mind quite as much.
I was going to say, I'm struggling to think of like just one, maybe two really bad events, but it sounds like you've got a shopping list ready for you.
No, by no means a shopping list. Like,
right.
I always loved casting the Quake, but I remember myself doing quite a shit job at one of the Luca events, and I remember not liking that.
Oh, you just annoyed at yourself, so to speak.
Yeah, like I just remember, like, you just felt bad in yourself at that point. And then that kind of negative feeling for me is what I remember about the event, rather than, the tables kept falling over and people were throwing up on the computer. Like, there wasn't anything like that, right?
Stir me through a chair.
Yeah. Like, it was all good otherwise. I think it's usually, I think about my personal like feelings around it, rather than, there's not been any catastrophic events like where nothing works. I think there's been some Quake cons where like, we've lost power for 3 hours, but yeah, that doesn't really stick in my mind.
What about you, Lethal? What has been the worst event you've attended?
I wouldn't even say the worst. I think it feels like the worst year. I remember like in 05, we had to play on 14-inch CRTs for like the entire year, and it was just like one of the worst things. 14-inch, wow. Yeah. Like, it was just like we had to compete on those. And I remember the first event going to in Birmingham for one of the first Halo 2 events, and it was just a set of 14-inch CRT TVs, and I was like, I can't even see the Spartan like across the map, let alone anything else. It was just an horrendous experience. And then all of a sudden, like, another tournament organizer came out with 32-inch CRTs, and we're just like, oh, okay, this is exactly what it bloody should, what it should be in comparison. But no, I'm not saying I've never had like a catastrophic or awful event experience known to man. Like, I've never had like anything like that. Like, nothing like pops up to my head and go, oh yeah, that is goddamn awful. That is just like, what on earth was that kind of thing. So not yet anyway.
Well, I once attended an event as a player for Overwatch Portugal, and we played on laptops that were had just been taken out of the boxes, and nothing was installed on them, not even drivers or anything. It was like really small laptops, and my laptop during the semi-final it crashed like 7 times during one map. No, I never even got to use my ultimate or anything. Every time I was about to get it, it would crash. At the 7th time, I just held the laptop up high and just let it fall on the floor, and I walked out.
But this wasn't great. I think the experience that players have at events was a big contrast of what it is like for a commentator. I've never gone to an event specifically to play. So for me, what I'd see is how was production? How was my commentary? What was it like working with my colleagues and stuff? But for players, I think it's a lot more sensitive to the hardware and everything. And that is what makes or breaks your experience sometimes, because you can actually get into your zone. And if something stops you getting into your zone, then it's, I can imagine it goes on the blacklist of events you want to think about.
Yeah, it's the worst bit is like losing your voice as well. Like if you've got like a 1-day event, you can just give it your all in terms of like energy levels and what you want to bring to the table. But if you've got a 3-day event, you'll notice that majority of the casters will have or will commentate like quite low to medium levels just to try and save their voice for the final day.
Really?
There's some people who will just literally go. Some people can do it though. Some people can go full on for 3 days and it's fine. Like I'm one of those people who just can't do that. If I don't ease my voice for the first couple of days, then I'm done for day 3. And it's been like that a few times. I'm sure you guys probably done that in the past as well, where if you've given it too much early on, like on the last day, your voice is pretty much like done for. Like you can
pretty much every online cup ever.
I genuinely think I've done irreparable harm to my vocal cords through casting because of things like that. I'm pretty sure. I remember I'm doing work when I have to do sort of long presentations or things like that. So I can't talk after 30-40 minutes if I'm like like a proper speaking to an audience kind of volume. And so I'm sure I'm cursed from casting at this point.
That does remind me of a question. The most exhausting event you've ever had to do?
I mean, I think you've been at all of the ones for me, Bruno.
Yeah, because we were just 2 guys. For me, it was
Adroits.
The other for me wasn't the worst. It was like the
Prague LAN.
Prague was off, dude. In terms of time, we were just 2 guys. Yeah. We had to cast like 14 hours every day or 16.
Yeah, there was Koziel as well.
There was Koziel, but Koziel wasn't casting. He was doing the production, thankfully for us. But thankfully for us, because we couldn't do the production at the same time.
I did production as well. I was also doing production.
Yeah, but you sucked at it. Koziel was the best. Yeah, but that was like, and we were sleeping on like one room, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
And the bathroom was like shared with everyone.
Actually, that's a really good point though, because that was also probably one of my favorite events. Because I only really thought about the first year of events for me, but genuinely the Prague TDM LAN was unbelievably good. The vibes with everyone. I think the main problems was like at the end of it, there was a lot of technical issues starting to crop up, and computers were getting destroyed because everyone was swapping and different software, like mouse drivers and things like that were mixing together. But that was unbelievable, but also almost as exhausting as Adroits, I think.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Lethal?
I remember I think it was a VR event. I think it went on from like 8 a.m. till like 1 a.m. But the problem was it was very early. When was it? I think it was like 2018, I believe. It was one of the first VR events. And because, things are going to break, stuff's going to happen, like not just production, but with the actual peripherals themselves. And I think it was meant to finish at like 6-7 o'clock, and it ended up finishing like 1 a.m. 2 a.m. This was like
day
ESL.
One. Was that ESL?
It was. Yeah.
In Leicester.
That's it. Yeah.
I remember the setup. Yeah, that looked difficult.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, like the game itself was like very interesting. I think like the whole inside of it was great, but it was just because it was new and something we wanted to actually try out, and it was something different. We were like, oh, okay, this should be pretty cool. I wasn't casting. I think I was interviewing for it, and it was just mind blowing because you had the PCs underneath the stage. They would get overheated because you're using the Oculus Quests, and obviously how hardware intensive it is. Everything was overheating underneath. Sometimes the pistol wouldn't work that well, and you got obviously the other bits and pieces. There's lots of stuff. I could make a shopping list again of like the change they would have to make, but it was like it went on for 16 hours or something like that on the first day.
I might have been there at the same time as you. I remember going. I think I casted some Quake, and then I went over to the other studios where this VR show was going on, and
Rings
it
a
looked. I saw
bell.
the players were. I don't actually remember if I saw you there, Harry. But
I don't know why, but
remember
it
seeing
rings a
how
bell a little
sweaty
bit.
the players were. Yeah, well, exactly right. It's a small world, isn't it? But
Yeah,
I
because we did the
remember
siege event in the past as well.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that was good fun.
For some reason, that reminded
one
me.
attempt at it.
That reminded me of the actual worst event I've attended. DreamHack
Go on,
Tours.
go on.
Like, I had deleted that from my mind.
Was that bad for you?
Yes, it's the first time in my life I lost in the group stage because of Wenger.
Oh, okay. Are you accepting no responsibility at all, Bruno?
No,
Just for the record.
I take no responsibility. The VODs are out there; people can see it was Wenger. It was his first LAN, and it didn't go that well. But thankfully, he got over it.
He did.
Actually, someone made a good point in chat. They were talking about Kirk casting and how flamboyant and energetic it was. You know, going back to what I was talking about, where some casters may lose their voice, some don't. Of course, like you said before, vocal cords can deteriorate over time. He was just absolutely full on from the very first, even before the first match to the very end. And I was sitting there and I was kind of watching a little bit, and I was thinking to myself, where does this guy get his energy from? Where, like, how has he not broke his voice? Like, but if that was me, I would have broke my voice in half a day, something like that. And I thought, I
tried to cast
crazy.
like he does I casted with him one game, and the game wasn't even that exciting, but he made me start shouting too. Like me, I'm usually
Who are you talking about? Who's
it's where is he from? I think from Chile, maybe.
I don't remember the name that you mentioned.
He cast in Spanish. He came to the last KeenCon and he was casting on the Spanish stream, and he's exactly what you'd expect from a Spanish football caster, right? He's just shouting all the time. I casted in a couple of games with him in Spanish, and after 10 minutes, like, he made me start shouting as well, and my voice just started dying. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, because I do feel like there is a strategy. There's many strategies you can use for casting for, like, to save your voice for the final date. But if you can go full on 3 days, then yeah, of course, go for it. If you could do it, you could do it. But it's a very rare breed for some people to be able to do that, though. Because I know personally, I could never do that. There's like absolutely no way. I could bring that energy level like for the 3 days, yeah, sure. But it's just having your vocal cords intact. It's just no way.
I remember though the weekly, when we went to Face It Studios and stuff, and things like that. I mean, for the first couple of years of casting, I don't think I ever raised my voice enough. But after doing work in Face It, it felt like every online cup, particularly when you get to sort of semi-finals and finals, you have to like get to a certain level where you're really pushing out some volume. It's not the same as like LAN finals level where you are desperately trying to spit blood into the audience with how loud you're going, but it definitely wears you down quite massively. I think one thing I never realize how bloody tiring it is, and actually how much I regret not looking after myself more. Not just like looking after my voice, but like keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself fed. Like, you don't realize how bloody exhausted you are the whole time. I think I would have done a lot better job if I did that.
Yeah, it's weird because I know obviously players around tactic strategies, all that stuff, blah to lead up to the grand final when they're competing. But even though casting isn't the same, there's a lot of methods we need to use, like in order to try and make things, in terms of like improvements. For example, like terminology, how you want to show things. Don't say certain things too much. I'm one of those people where I'll probably say one thing repeatedly, like throughout the entire course of the broadcast, and I probably won't realize until after the stream where someone say I said this word about 50 times. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not very good.
I heard that so much.
I'll change it, and then the next stream I'll say another word like 50 times, or another word 50 times, or I'll mispronounce a certain phrase or anything like that. So I kind of feel like it doesn't matter how much experience you have, you tend to kind of make those same mistakes. So I may change the word, for example, but it will be a different word, or like, what's the word of the day? It's probably gonna be me saying this word 50 times or whatever it is. It's damn annoying.
And the thing is, if you're tired and not looking after yourself, you end up doing that stuff a lot more, is what I find. I remember the events where I was most tired at, that's where I'd make these kind of mistakes. If you're not fully tired, invested.
You're going to autopilot.
Yeah, I think autopilot's the right words.
Both of you have casted professionally. Have you got like any professional sort of training, like this QPL, for instance, help the casters in general to like teach them how to cast? Does ESL do that? How does any of that work? Or they just give some guidelines and that's it?
I think the casters who benefit the most are the ones who are doing regular work consistently. So, for example, I think in 2018, 2019, and 2021, I was doing regular. I was casting almost every couple of weeks, every week, and it's good because you feel refreshed, you feel revitalized, you know what improvements to make. There's no signs of rust or anything like that, so you can continue making those improvements. But if you're casting like what we're doing now, like every few months or every couple of months, you just get rusty again, and then you go back to normal. You get rusty, then you go back to normal. So you kind of just go into this bubble where it's very hard to make those improvements if you're not consistently commentating or on the analyst desk or hosting. It can be very difficult. So that's why if you're casting every few months or every month, every couple of months, you can't make those steady improvements you'd like to make. Yes, sure, you can watch back to VODs and then look through to see exactly what mistakes you've made or what needs to be changed or any wording, terminology, or just your energy levels here and there. But I think if you're casting every week or more frequently, you can do that. Or if you're commentating full time, you have the tools and the time to actually be able to succeed and be able to improve your casting. But if you're doing it irregularly, like not to a consistent level, you kind of feel like you stay the same, like you stay in this purgatory area for the entirety of the length of time you're commentating, like leading up to the next job or the next gig.
It's really hard to get good quality feedback as well, I find. In terms of like, if you really want to improve, knowing who to listen to, because some people are just very opinionated because they want you to sound like their last favorite caster, for instance. So they like, why do you do this, do that, do that? It's like, no, you have to find your own way in. But I remember the best advice I got was
probably from me.
No, absolutely not. Do you remember Simeone from Face It?
Simeone,
yes.
Yeah, and he because it was me and DDK who were essentially starting off over there, he was kind of trying to coach us. And this was around the period where, I wasn't putting enough energy into my cast. I was doing a lot of talking, and then when it was exciting, I was talking like fractionally louder, but you're not meant to talk louder, you're meant to shout at that point. And he was kind of explaining it. It's a bit like a pantomime, really. You're creating a show, you're trying to pass the ball between each other as casters. It is a team game, and really getting your voice out. I mean, that didn't happen until we were like forced to have, me and DDK, hopefully I can say this, we had like a shot of vodka each before a cast. They told us to do it.
Okay, don't judge. This is Faceit tactics, okay? I remember when we worked at Faceit, we always had a bottle of vodka right below the desk.
I only did it once. I'll be clear. I only did it once.
When I was there with DDK, we would do it every time.
I remember having like 2 shots, but then that single time I realized I'm yelling because I've like let loose a bit. Like,
that's great.
That confidence has come out, and then you realize that's what you've actually just got to do all the time. And so then I realized this is the level that I need to. This is the excitement that people are looking for, or at least that the people who were hiring me at the time or sending me to Italy were. So
I asked this question.
I went from there.
Basically, because like when we started casting, Zoot and I started casting in Quake because there was no one else covering online cups. But we realized that we were not good at casting at all. So after every stream, we would just tell each other like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong." So I was wondering if, like, when you guys started casting professionally, if you had people doing that for yourself, especially from the company you were casting for. But I guess it's more of a solo mission than anything else.
Lethal will have a much more interesting experience because you were with ESL for a while, weren't you? And you were doing a lot of interesting studio stuff and also a lot of different games. So I'd imagine your diversity, because for me it was a massive echo chamber, really, in terms of it was productions, but it was very much Quake, and you'd hear something from other Quake people, and there wasn't really much useful constructive feedback apart from the stuff I already mentioned. So I'm sure Lethal's probably had a lot more.
I would always, after each show offline, I would always say, like, what needs to be improved, what needs to be changed. I would always ask for consistent feedback all the time. I remember when I first came into the Quake scene in 2017 and then came up for the QPL, I would always see what the community would think, what changes that need to be made. So I'll be honest, I'm one of those people, I don't like watching myself in broadcasts. I would like to see other people's opinions.
See, that's a common thing we have. I also don't like seeing you in broadcasts.
Oh, stop it. I expected that straight away.
Wasn't worth the airtime.
Well, at least we got it in common. But I noticed that I didn't really get much feedback at all from any other game. But when I saw from the Quake community, it was literally, I couldn't believe how many mistakes I made or the things I've got to do. Because at the time when I first started doing the QPL, I was doing like multiple other games as well. And it's very difficult to remember thousands of players, the meta of all 10 games, the player's history. It's very, very involved and a huge amount. But if you're dedicated to 1, 2, 3 games, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more viable in terms of the amount of time you have to invest and whatever. So now it's just a handful. It's great because of the fact that now we've got the time to, play the game itself, duel, look back and see exactly what needs to be improved on. But I feel like the Quake communities most probably helped me the most in compared to any other game or any other broadcast. There's a lot of little things here and there, not about the game itself, but in terms of little niche margins here and there that needs to be cleaned up or
because
just focused on.
We all love to criticize.
Oh, yeah,
Incredible.
That's an understatement. I had so much criticism, like the first couple of broadcasts. I was like, right. And so as soon as I saw the amount of criticism I got, I was like dueling 4 or 5 hours a day. I was trying to learn, study everything that first year just to make sure at least I'm in to like some kind of shape to understand what on earth needs to be improved on. But yeah, I got so much flack.
I probably need to take a significant amount of therapy to recover from the trauma from from criticism. But one of the main things that come out, the one that you can reliably see that yes, this is valid feedback, is they want you to know the game as well as possible, and that usually means they want you to be a good player as well, and that's what helps you kind of, at least for me, is the way in for me to get some kudos almost, or some credibility with the audience. So the more I was playing, the more it was actually helping my commentary, I found. But the thing is, for you, Lethal, you were a pro player in a game already. But what I noticed, so I'm really curious about this, because I remember you coming in 2017, and then I remember you coming back in for QPL, and in my opinion, you had grown as a commentator so much when you would come back to do the QPL. I'm wondering, was it just doing commentary more and more that got you there, or did you have anything specific that you worked on to change?
That was massively due to experience. So I think in 2017, I know the EU qualifiers for QuakeCon. That was leading up to the first QuakeCon, if I remember rightly. That was my second or third ever broadcast. I was very new, or not second or third. I think it was half a dozen by then. Yeah, wow. It was very early. Yeah, because at the time, I only went full time at the end of 2016, and then 2017 was leading into it. So I think that was mainly due to inexperience. And then leading into the QPL, that's when I realized I needed to study, I needed to focus. I can't rely on all the Halo 1v1 tournaments I competed in and then go straight to Quake, because it's an entirely different ball game in terms of fundamentals, mechanics, and the strategies behind it. There's a few small instances here and there, but nothing in comparison. So that's when I went straight into duel. I didn't play anything else. I played it probably 4 to 6 hours a day for a few months straight, and then just to at least give me a idea and a clearer understanding of what to say. Never at the pro level, never going to happen, but at least give it a clearer picture of and from an analytical perspective in terms of what needs to be said, what needs to be done, because I kind of feel like you can't just not play the game. That's just silly. It's nonsense.
Unless you're Joe Miller.
Do it. Yeah.
Unless that's the guy who could cast any game without ever having seen it.
Yeah.
And somehow do a good job.
I don't know. I don't know that, but you understand where I'm coming from. There's, watching numerous broadcasts and then studying the game and then going from that route, and then there's actually playing it. I feel like physically playing it and get to not the pinnacle level, but to at least an intermediate level to understand exactly how to explain
decision
things.
Making,
exactly.
What is a player actually trying to think about roughly? I can completely agree on that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Since we talked about olden days here and etc., what do you guys consider were the golden days of esports? Is it now? Was it 20 years ago? Was it 10 years ago?
Esports as a whole?
Esports as a whole.
Jesus. Do you have an answer prepared, Harry?
No.
I don't.
Oh.
No, I don't either. Actually, I don't. Yeah, I would probably say. I don't know if I would even say there's been a golden age.
there's got to be a few different golden ages, right? Because there's certain like small explosions. When streaming came out, that would have been a big thing for me, like pre 2006 or 7. I can't really speak to the earliest parts of esports, but I guess the exciting part at that point was the fact that it existed and that you could play people on the same network and online and things like that. But I'm not someone who could properly have.
I know. I'm asking about your perspectives.
I'd probably say it depends on the game, not just overall in esports.
Yeah.
So, for example, with Halo 2006 to 2010 was the golden era. It's always been said that, and hasn't changed ever since. And I'm sure somewhere along the line in the Quake scene, there's been a golden era, like
just at the start. That's it.
Oh,
it was just went downhill.
But have you noticed it's always in the noughties?
2008 Quake Live, just from like a esports and community perspective, I absolutely loved that because Quake Live felt like it was really like there's a lot of people around, there's a lot of good players, there are a lot of people talking about esports, and it was so easy to go to an IRC channel and find people who are excited about it. But this would be the point, surely, that like StarCraft was having its own boom. Then later on you had League of Legends that was exploding. Then you had TI, like the first ever TI.
Yeah.
That was absolutely massive in esports.
Then just a couple of years later, CS exploded with the skins as well. So from 2008 to 2013, I guess.
That was such a huge period for esports, in my opinion. And then I think the later on you go, it became much more companies clocking onto these are marketing mechanics that we use.
Yeah.
We give prize pool, we get acquire marketing.
That's what I was thinking, like esports just putting money in it.
Things like that.
I mean, Fortnite putting money in it, basically.
That in of itself is such an interesting point of esports because of the amount. There was $100 million of prizes like added in during a whole year of Fortnite, which is ridiculous amounts of money. And now we're going into the whole. We've got the Esports World Cup, and we've got the IOC has just approved an Esports Olympics somewhere in Saudi, I assume. And I don't think that's a golden era and a golden age, personally. I think, if anything, it's making me feel a bit weird about it. I saw the Commonwealth Games with esports, and I really think they struggled to get the best out of it, just because you need subject matter experts to really be helping with that. But I don't know. Like after that sort of early boom, leading up until like 2014, I don't know if I'd count them as golden ages. But I'm sure someone more in touch has a different perspective.
What about a different question? Traditionally in esports, esports are mostly community funded. Nowadays, the devs of the game also put money in the game, or not the devs, the publishers, etc. But it's mostly like open competitions, etc. But lately, we've been having a boom of like franchised leagues. Do you think franchise leagues are good for esports, or are they bad for esports? What's the future of this? Is it going to be combining the two in some sort of way, or what? Lethal, you go first.
I've never been a fan of franchise leagues. I think there's too many restrictions for some of the teams and some of the players, and it can just get really complicated. It may be good for investment in some ways for the organizations and the developers, but I've just never been a fan of it in general. Because if you want to drop someone because they're horrendous and they're a weak link, I can't just simply do that because there's going to be contracts involved. There's going to be lots of bits and pieces which are going to get in the way, and it's just a little bit of a nightmare for some teams. But not only that, though, it's a lot harder for open teams to come out of the woodwork as well. Yeah. With individual players, if they've got potential, they need some serious potential or natural talent in some way to be able to be on that pedestal to then make it into that franchise league. But
probably more networking than talent at that point.
Pretty much, yeah. Like you could be horrendous, but go, oh, okay, I know this guy, but I don't know if that's a thing. But
that's what was happening in the Overwatch League in the first year. You had really bad teams in the Overwatch League that would lose to open teams, but the open teams would have no way of getting to the Overwatch League, just individual players. Zoot, what's your opinion on franchise leagues?
Basically, if you're Riot, it's kind of okay. I think they have done the best job out of anyone at managing franchises, particularly in League of Legends. I think Valorant slightly finding its way, but it's doing okay. There's definitely a massive gap where there's just no events, which I think is a bit strange. But yeah, Riot has done an unbelievable job, and even though the franchise itself isn't hugely profitable, I think it actually still nets a loss for them. It's an amazing marketing spend for them, which I think they do, and their productions out of this world. I think the rest of esports really tries to follow Riot in terms of them setting the benchmark. But I can't really think of another franchise league which, in my opinion, has been particularly great, or like Overwatch League was just a dumpster fire.
Sadly.
And I don't know. I wish I knew a bit more about some of the others. After PUBG run its own, maybe. I'm not sure. I've been playing a bit PUBG recently, but I haven't kept in touch with the esports side of it much. But I think
the mobile esports side of PUBG is bigger than the
I think
PC
you're right.
side.
Yeah, strangely, but no, I think you're completely right. I'm trying to think. QPL was sort of franchise league, right?
Yeah, sort of. For me, the biggest thing I hate with franchise leagues is, as a player that is not currently franchised or sponsored, there's sometimes there will be qualifiers, like QPL at qualifiers, but if you miss that one qualifier, you only get to play again in a year, basically. With most franchise leagues, they don't even have an option for players or teams to qualify, there's no path to pro, basically, which is kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I think Fortnite did it. I like Fortnite. I don't like how they did it, but it had a really pure esports side of it, right? They just had money thrown, and any kid in the world could be the next world champion tomorrow. Yeah. And for me, that is basically what separates esports from actual sports, is that anyone can be the best if they are the best that day.
Well, Valve is moving away from it as well in CS, because it was a Blast and ESL or EFG were trying to run their own franchise leagues, and like you said with Overwatch, better teams that weren't paying this money to stay in the league, guess what? They were beating the supposed best teams in the world, and it's quite embarrassing, really. So I think unless you actually have a proper avenue for, qualifying and some meritocracy of some sort, I'm not a massive fan. But I'm always open to ideas and people running it differently or having an alternative spin on it. But that requires an enormous amount of investment, and it requires like a bit less red tape, and the large companies, it's so difficult to find that, in my opinion.
So basically the future is bleak.
Sports is in a weird period at the moment, I feel like. Obviously there's been like a huge amount, it's going to sound really boring, but the economy has kind of screwed it a little bit, because it's also had an impact on sponsorship amounts. Betting companies, for instance, are spending less money. Crypto companies are spending less money on their teams. There was a lot of free money going around for a while. If you were an esports team, particularly one that was tier 2 plus, you could make bank by contacting one of these types of organizations and getting sponsorship. But now it's a lot harder to do that. So I think finding where the money's coming from to kind of add to the circus, really, that's a big challenge for people. So I'm kind of curious what this next era of esports is going to look like, and it's a shame. Well, I would love Quake to be in it a bit more. I'd love it to be part of the Esports World Cup. We need a 1v1 duel, a 1v1
maybe
FPS
the World Cup,
right?
and the Olympics, who knows?
Yeah,
I think in Quake we have a lot of connection to higher ups in those communities. You just need to get them working.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't going to have shooters involved, like any shooting games. I might be mistaken, though.
Hey, Quake doesn't have anything to do with actual shooting. They're definitely not going to have CS, right? Because it talks about terrorists and counter-terrorists.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But in Quake, you're shooting lizards. I think it's fine. Or defrag, yeah. Maxer said something interesting. Unless you are a streaming star, it's really hard to step up from tier B. Having connections will be more important than being talented and skilled. And
I think that's been the same case for a while.
Yeah, that's true. Especially in Overwatch. I remember this really tragic story of this guy who was, I think he was Finnish player. His nick was Davin. He was an amazing Tracer player. It was at the Overwatch start. They still had like sort of a path to pro, but not really. Because you could win contenders, but that wouldn't guarantee anything. It could just give you prize money. And he won. He had a team, but most of his team went to the Overwatch League. So he made a new team to play contenders, and he won the first contenders with random guys that he had found. He hard carried the team. And that team, almost everyone on that team got fielded by a team to go play the franchise league. He never got in because he didn't have connections. I think he was also a bit toxic. And then the next year, he fielded another completely random team. He won the contenders again. And again, half of his team went to the Overwatch League and he didn't make it, so he just quit the game.
But you have to build your
Wow.
you have to build your personal brand
Exactly.
if you're trying to be an esports
Marketability
athlete.
is so important
Yeah.
for big teams, because at that point everyone already is like 99% in skill, right? So they want other things you can bring. And if you're not well connected or have a huge following, it gets really hard to get picked.
But it's almost a part of like you need to give yourself media training of some sort. What I quite like about gaming and esports still is if you find the person who's ranked number one, particularly like FPL is a great example. If you qualify to the FPL somehow in the CS and you get towards the top of the rankings, guess what? If you're a streamer, you're going to get people watching you because that means you are among the best players. You're playing with some really strong players, and I still love that kind of idea that you get the top of the scoreboard, you turn your stream on, and if you're a halfway okay human being, you're going to get people interested in seeing what you have to do. But it's from there that you have to, get some kind of consistency and build your brand and understand how to talk to an audience and so on. And I think a lot of people aren't like that. It's not an easy thing to do.
These are the kind of things
I get it.
That in esports they aren't well taught. If you play sports, if you've ever played sports of any level at the academy level, they teach you like how to eat, how to practice, how to handle yourself in interviews. This is things that kids from like age 9 and 10 already start learning. But in esports, you could be one of the best players in the world and still not have a basic grasp of your diet, of your nutrition, of how to exercise, of your social media or anything.
Sounds like all of us.
It reminds me of sorry, Lethal. It reminds me of StarCraft, where they gave players like an opened bottle of champagne when they win a tournament, and they just stand there and they're like,
the problem is nowadays, in terms of content creation, it's been oversaturated for years, but nowadays it's just crazy. Unless you have some crazy abstract personality, character, and highly skilled, it's so difficult. It's like you've seen so many people try to make it. And going back to players as well, there's some players I've seen in the past where, I don't know, like 6 to 8 years ago, they've, quite quiet, quite timid. They'd answer a few questions during interviews, blah, 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 blah. But because they become more media friendly, or as you were saying, like kind of like either training or they just been more familiar being in front of a camera, then they've been able to express themselves a lot more in comparison to what they were when they were first winning tournaments or first being interviewed. But it does make a massive difference, because even a player called, I remember a player called Shoxy, for example, literally, he was the best player in Halo 5 in the world, like one of the best, well up there. And then, it was quite quiet, but it would answer all the questions, etc., etc. And when I saw him next, like in the CDL, like 5 years later, he's become a lot more media friendly. He's been extremely good, well thought out. He's got a lot more personality and charisma into what he says and how he streams. He regularly streams now quite often. So it's quite interesting to see like the difference between when they first start out as a professional player, and then 5-6 years later down the line, all of a sudden it's completely different opposite end of the spectrum.
He developed the stream riz. Sorry,
he became marketable. He became marketable. That's it. That's what you got to do.
Could have put it better myself.
I want to take it down to like a dark avenue again.
Okay.
Why are FPS dead?
Are they?
Why are AFPS dead? Arena FPS.
I might get slated for saying this or whatever, but I personally feel like it's because it takes too much skill. I think it's because the skill gap is so high in comparison to any other game. It just doesn't really appeal to the new players. There's a lot of players nowadays who are coming into the scene or quite new over the last 10 years where, I don't know, they could jump into Quake Champions. They'll get absolutely decimated during their 10 ranked games or 3 ranked games, depending on how far they want to take it. And they're just like, yeah, this is not appealing for me. I'm not interested. There's no sense of, not perfection, but no sense of trying to at least establish some kind of skill, learn from the basics going upwards. I kind of feel like you have to really dumb down the game to a huge degree in order to make it appealing in some way. I've seen it quite often where you've seen a lot of shooters, a lot of battle royales where they try to make it or cater it for as friendly as possible for a lot of the new players who are maybe unfamiliar with arena shooters. That's why I was saying with Quake Champions is a good example. If you're brand new to the game, you may face some people in a ranked duel or in DM where at some stage you're going to match some of these players who have been playing for 20, 25 years, or maybe just for the last few years, but they've been grinding 8 to 10 hours a day. And because the skill ceiling is so high and there's many, many tiers to actually break through in order to make it to the top, they're just like, is there much point? Is it actually any way or any viable option for me to even be able to establish myself in this game. And yeah, I think a lot of them will just find it way too difficult. And I've seen that happen quite a lot. And then, in my opinion, and I'm sure it's your guys' opinion as well, is that arena shooters, majority of them, have the highest skill ceiling in the world. And with Quake being at the absolute highest, the pinnacle, it's just going to make it less appealing for players.
Interesting.
I broadly agree, but I also I'm glad that you answered first. It allowed me to settle my emotions a bit about this topic. And,
gave you a bit of time. That's all right.
Yeah, I create probably a bit more of a diplomatic answer. I do think there is a sort of weird yearning for some sort of mechanically complex game. Like I remember seeing a reception to Apex Legends, which for a BR is a bit faster than your average one. I remember the Fortnite with the building mechanics, and that's not easy to do what those kids are doing. That I think people can tolerate the mechanics, and you might tell that I work as a product manager essentially, but has been a fundamental problem with the products, and that's the arena FPS games. I feel like Quake, with its big Quake Champions in particular, with its chance to boom, really bottled it. The game was in a terrible position in 2017, and it's just a big time to really announce to the world about arena FPS, and it just wasn't ready for that amount of people to see it. So for me, that did so much damage really to the chances of arena FPS, making it larger and larger. And I don't think the game ever really got into a place where it was going to accept newer players somehow. The game had gotten too small at that point. There were too many game modes and too many good players. And then you've got the other efforts at arena FPS that I just think they just decided to make all the same mistakes. I'm talking about Diabotical. Like, it was really great for Quake players because we had the same game and it was like a small boost in activity, but it was kind of a shit attempt at like reigniting the flame of AFPS, in my opinion. And I don't think Diabotical Rogue I don't even know if it's trying to do anything with AFPS, but it's certainly not heading in that direction, that's for sure. So I like to think still that there is that opportunity, but for someone to take the risk and spend the money and try again to get people interested in a mechanically complex FPS game, I just don't think there's going to be another chance, really.
That does bring me to the next question. If you had the means, how would you solve the AFPS problems? Is there a way to solve it?
I think you'd need some kind of immensely powerful like IP of some sort, like a really recognizable old game name. Quake is one of them. If they decided to make a brand new Quake, but they'd probably have to invest, $20 to $50 million into this, there's a chance. Does another game? I can't think of one. I've literally never thought of this question if another studio will have to do it. But think of your EAs trying to build something. A company of that size is going to need to invest a colossal amount of money in order to get it somewhere. I just don't know. 1v1, people try to socialize games a lot now. So trying to bring back a dual version of a game, doubt that duel is anything that will probably exist in FPS ever again, at least certainly not in a competitive setting. And then from a team perspective, I don't know. It would take a huge, you'd have to move the sun, is what I feel. I don't know if you agree, Harry.
No, I do. No, actually, I agree with a lot of those points. I still got the whole skill ceiling in the back of my head, which kind of
yeah.
It's like I said, you can't just dumb it down on purpose. It's an absolute be an absolute nightmare. But yeah, I think a lot of investment, but we need a lot more awareness and marketing behind it as well. I do feel like, in terms of across the board on social platforms, you need someone just to kind of market it a little bit better to try and at least establish some kind of control. Again, I know it's all based on budgets and where you should be investing in certain areas and how and why, but it is very important to make sure to do that. And you've got to try and the problem is it's very difficult to cater for everyone, because I think with Quake overall, they just see it as clearly just a 1v1 esports title. This is the stigma a lot of people are trying to assume. That's why earlier when we were talking about what improvements we need to make for the QPL, we need to also also cater for the people who've been left in the dark, even if it's a small prize pool. At least that way it will keep them playing, it will keep them entertained, and at least it gives them something to play for, because not everyone's going to be, a 1v1 player, not everyone's going to be a duelist. So to try and figure out what to do at the very beginning is most important, because not just for an arena shooter, it could be any game. But first impressions is so important. There's so many games where I've seen them, have like 100,000 players, and then 96% of the player base will just disappear, like probably after like 2 weeks to a month. I've seen it happen numerous times.
So many times.
Because of it having a bad first impression. So normally you should be planning like 3 months before the game's release exactly how to keep the content going, how to make sure to keep them invigorated, like entertained, make sure to be able to at least keep them occupied, and in some way keep them wanting to come back and play the game even more. Because again, there's a lot of games where 96% of the players will just go because bugs are not being fixed, updates aren't as regular. There's so many things mentioned by the community which has been mentioned numerous times but doesn't get fixed. Sometimes content won't get released until like months down the line, but by then all the players have buggered off months in advance. So you need to kind of have a strategy like 3 months before the game's initial release to how to keep the player base engaged. Those 100,000 people, how are you going to... I know that with every game, it does dwindle eventually over time. It's, natural cause of effects, but at least try and at least minimize it as much as possible to go from like 100,000 to 2,000 or something like that. Because we've seen so many games which have such a large amount of potential, but just never get as far as they would like, just due to that first initial experience. So yes,
this is a really good point. A really good point. And the finals. Did you play the finals at all?
Yeah, I loved it, to be fair.
And I think that's a great example of what you're saying, because it launched, got lots of people really excited, over 100,000 concurrent players, and then what's the next? Where's the new content? There wasn't enough content to keep people around for a long time, so they relaunched sort of the next season or something like that, and they had a new map, and that reinvigorated a little bit, but it's so far away from being at the peak of where it was on the initial launch. And that's the problem. The development cycle to actually create this content in game and to keep people engaged when you're competing against like the mammoths and the legacy games that are floating around, League of Legends, Dota, CS, even Valorant at this point, and whatever else, people will tend to like just flock back to those games that have been around forever. I don't mean Valorant there, but it's just bloody hard work to get that sort of social attention from everyone to just hang in there. And as you say, you have to spend a lot of money, I think, to keep that content cycle just going. Otherwise, and again, you have to have like a 5-year plan. You can't have a launch plan. It has to be much longer than that.
Yeah, because like we're saying with the finals, like at the moment they launched, they should have had stuff ready to go like a couple of months later, and instead they started working on that after the launch.
Yeah.
And with so many games, I
didn't realize people would play.
with so many games, trying to get people's attention, like someone was saying in the chat, it's very hard to compete against the marketing budget of the big companies.
Yeah.
And like an army of 1,000 developers, how are you as a studio of 20, 30 people going to compete with someone like that? I just don't. Yeah.
Just need a lot of
luck.
luck.
The reality of gaming, though, right? That's it. And I know at some point. What's really interesting though is that at one point BRs didn't exist, and when PUBG came out with this battle royale format, that just completely shook the world. At some point, there's going to be another new gaming formula that is used, and I think it's going to do the same type of thing once again. It's going to create a buzz, and it's what do these companies make out of that buzz? Are they just trying to rinse and repeat the same game? The amount of games that I see now that just look identical, like generic shooter that looks a little bit like Call of Duty and some other, military sims. And I'm just like, you've got to be a bit more creative than that, I think, to get people's attention. Because
with that, you said, I just realized that to save Quake, we just need to wait 30 years until everyone forgets Quake exists or any arena FPS, and then we launch FPS as a completely new thing to people that have never heard about it. That's it.
And I need to be reborn so I can experience it as if it's my first time.
I have an open question for the three. Would something like Defrag be more marketable to the masses than the duel game? With Defrag, there's the same problem, right? It's super skilled, but it does offer one thing that the arena FPS in general don't have, which is anyone can play it at their own pace, basically. Like with Apex and Fortnite and those kinds of games, even if you're really bad at the game, you can, you have your things. Until you die, you're winning, basically, right? You're playing the game at your own pace. Until you die, you're winning. And then you die, you just start a new game, and that's it. In Quake, you're forced to play at the pace everyone else is playing at, which is frantic. What are your guys' takes?
I think the issue you have with something like Defrag is, what is the gameplay loop there, and how are people going to get connected to it? Trackmania is probably the one that you can focus on the most from there, but even they are having to produce like a lot of new content to keep the community engaged with it, and it's taken them 20 years to get to a place that's reasonably good. I think for Defrag, I would love it. I'd love it if there's some people have tried to make very simple games that have those components, but to have it on a large scale, I would love to dream, and for me it would be so meaningful for it to happen. But I don't think you'd have to be very clever and do something that I certainly haven't thought of in order to make it really successful, in my opinion.
Let's see. I have basically one last question that I ask almost everyone. Do you think Quakers have what it takes to succeed in other games?
I think so. I do think the majority of them do. It just depends. I'm not saying age is a thing, but it depends how early on and how they can try and establish themselves, because they've been so used to playing Quake for so many years. I do feel like they can transition all the pedigree of skill which they've established in Quake and just go to any other game. I've seen in Halo where one of the players was world champion Halo, then he switched to COD and became world champion at that. I've seen him go to StarCraft and play at a very high level. So I assume, a majority of the Quake players, especially one at a higher echelon of the tier list, there's absolutely no reason why they can't, because obviously it's not just aim skill based. There's so many different elements to the game from a strategic level where they're very well thought out, and how they want to try and at least maneuver in some way to try and get up to the top. So I don't feel like there's no way they can't. I do feel like at least half of the pro players can definitely make a name for themselves in other games. It depends on what they want to do. We've seen Razy, he's trying to make a name in CS as well.
That's why I brought it up. Hazy and Strong Sage, with no experience of CS, he's now grinding CS as well.
Isn't Strong Sage quite young still, though?
Yeah, I think he's like 19 or 20.
And I think that's what's key, is if you are still one of the relatively young pros in Quake, I think for sure...
So that's a no to my question, because they're all over 35.
And that's why I think it's a struggle. Look, if you have enough time to grind a brand new game, even if it's an FPS, and you can continue to pay for the roof above your head, and you can continue to do your daily duties, which get more and more tiresome and concerning the older you get, I think. And if you somehow find that time, then sure, I think you can do it. But that's a gamble, that is. And unless you're young, I almost don't want to imagine,
That's really what separates, it's when, as you get older, you get more experience. The reflexes, the aim, sometimes it drops a bit, sometimes it doesn't. Look at Tox, he still has insane aim. What really changes is your perspective on life, right? And the time you have available to put into such games.
That's it. If you have the resources and you can do it, then I think, yes, it is possible to do it. But should you make that risk to be pro? And again, pro is not just being good at a game; it is being better than almost everybody. And I say almost everybody is. All the pro scenes within the most popular games is 99.99999% of people you've got to be better than to be a pro at that point. And it's that's to me is a big ask, especially if you're like, right, I'm going to move from like a fairly small game, which was very difficult to get to the top of, and I move to a much bigger game and get to the top of there.
It also depends as well, like what game.
Some players could do it, and I think it depends on your mentality. Maybe it depends on your strengths within Quake as well, and how transferable they are to that new game.
Yeah.
But if you move from I'm going to play an FPS in Quake, and I'm going to move to Dota, then I just think no, I don't think I have a chance.
That's my exact thoughts as well. If you're going to switch to a game where there's millions of players on a day, it's an oversaturated market in terms of the tournament scene, or the competitive scene overall, and you've seen how difficult it is in Dota or CS.
Yeah.
How difficult it is to try and at least even qualify into tier 3 or even tier 2 if you're that damn good at the game. It's almost impossible. If you've been playing all your life since you were 8 and trying to qualify at 17, 18, then fair enough. But if you're in the mid to late 20s trying to, it goes back to what you were saying. It was the amount of time you can invest. It's a lot more difficult when you're a lot older to invest that many hours, but also at the same time, it's your killer instinct. It's if you don't have that killer instinct mindset, which you originally had, because I've seen a lot of people's killer instinct kind of die down over time because they're getting older, getting a little more tired. It's a little more frustrating as well, especially if you're switching over to a new game. But you've got some people who've just got it in their 30s and they've still got that piss and vinegar, and I still want to try and at least establish themselves in another game, or just continue playing stupidly high level and win tournaments at this game. I still think nowadays in Quake we're very lucky to still have the pros who've been competing for like 15, 20, 25 years and they're still at the top. Because if you looked at any other game, they may be lurking around for 5 or 6 years. I mean, that's it, completely gone, disappeared, disintegrated. That's it. But in Quake, you still got, Tox, Kilson, Rafa, Kulan was around a bit here and there, until like a few years ago, Cypher, etc. Then the list goes on. So I think we're like quite lucky to have all these players to still be able to compete or just play in general.
My advice would be for anyone who was making a switch and had been around Quake for possibly too long, would be try and get like a coach position in another game. Like have build some connections through your ability to be an esports pro and move into that sort of coaching role, because you have, or then provably built that mentality already to be the best within a certain game. Now help people transfer that in a team environment, like a larger, more formal environment. I think that's probably where the money is, rather than trying to recreate yourself as a pro. Although I think I'm now veering off the question that you originally asked.
But it's fine, because like I think if you have to switch to another, if you have sponsorship behind you and you have to switch to another game, you should switch to a completely new game instead of like CS that already has like 20 years of knowledge behind it. If you go to a new game, then it would be a lot easier as well.
But then you go back to the problem that we were talking about, is that these new games, what's the longevity of a new game? Are you going to keep on cycling on new game and harvesting that esports marketing money?
Do you remember Shoot Mania?
People going to Splitgate, to Shoot Mania?
Yeah, that's it.
Whatever there is,
Just keep switching, keep making money.
And there are people that do that, and they actually do make some money. But is that going to be the long-term career point, like where you're going to take yourself?
There are always new esports coming, so it might be.
That's true.
I'm just going to switch to Farming Simulator League 2024 and just win the 250 grand on that.
Hey, if it works, it works.
So what's our advice? Try and find a game which has a player base of 100 players a day, and then see what the prize pool is.
Well, Splitgate guys were giving out lots of money, honestly. They were giving out quite a lot of free money to people. I think there's been a couple of other random FPS games that have been like 10k prize pool, but they never even told anyone about it.
Yeah.
And these tier 5 players came in and said, I'm going to take lots of money here for free. And I was like, this random investment. So yeah, I think if you've got a keen eye for some developers who don't know how to invest in esports, then you can make some cash. That's not my advice. That's not my advice.
That's your absolute official financial advice.
Not final. Yeah, I was just about to say.
You were talking about new games being released and being too generic. I was recently playing Marvel Rivals, and it just felt like Overwatch reskinned, basically. It has like a 10k tournament right now for it's in a closed beta, and lots of streamers are playing, but it just feels like there's not enough to make it different to Overwatch. Basically, it's just
when you said generic Overwatch, I thought you were going to say it was like switching from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, because that was massive.
No, that was the same game. Like the switch that they made from Overwatch 1 to 2, if that switch was 3 years ago, it would have just been another monthly update. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do people still play Overwatch? Is it popular still?
I think they've now started. It's in the Esports World Cup, so it's playable again. Not playable now, but people are competing in it because of it. That's it. Just because of the Esports World Cup, which we need to get Quake on next year.
I tried so hard to get into Overwatch, but it didn't click.
I just couldn't. Yeah, I felt like there's no individual skill behind it, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Weirdly though, I thought it was a game that Quake players could have been quite good at, and we did have some wins. We had
wins, AKM, Rafa the Hang. Even I competed a lot in Overwatch as Cooler, Cypher, Navek. Even I.
Wow.
Even I did that. If even I can do something, then others can as well. But I remember AKM even got into the Overwatch League.
True.
That was fun times. before it completely died out.
I only remember him from Shoot Mania though.
I mean, he played the. Didn't he play? He played the QuakeCon, right? That Clan Arena QuakeCon in 2013.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I knew him from Shoot Mania before that.
Yeah, but he was a Quaker. He was just not very good.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, he was Vince's brother. He had to be a Quaker.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, they won everything in Shoot Mania, and then he went on to win everything in Overwatch.
I'll just bring back Unreal Tournament. That's another IP that you could revitalize properly.
Yeah, but it was going to be revitalized, right? Until they stumbled upon Fortnite, and then Reputee.
It's like I remembered something in a conversation half an hour ago, and it was like, yeah, let's talk about it again. But, yeah.
But it was in the works for quite a while, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was, yeah.
Like a long time ago. Yeah,
and then they just
kicked off.
Yeah, and then they just dropped UT because Fortnite makes money.
Fortnite.
That is
my favorite.
The gaming world now. But now the gaming world for me, like especially esports, is just so filled with mobile games. Like if you look at the Esports World Cup, half the games there are mobiles that you've never heard of. It's insane.
That's true.
It's insane.
It's genuine. It's actually disappointing how little I've looked into the Esports World Cup.
Like if you go look at the list of games, I can guarantee you half of them are actually just mobile games because it makes money.
You've never heard of.
Like there's games like Arena Valor, PUBG Mobile. If I put the list on right now, yeah, I'm sure you're looking into it. It's like you can just
right now.
Just list out the names from the games.
Okay, all right. Hang on.
The thing is, though, like the reason why there's so many mobile titles out there, it's just a viable option in terms of like devices and platforms, isn't it? If it's easy to access, they're just going to have a huge player base inside out on those. Like look at PUBG Mobile, for example. That's bigger than PUBG just because it's more of a viable option, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of PC games as well. There's Siege, there's Apex, Fortnite.
It's half of them are mobiles, but the other half are PC or console. There's like
maybe I haven't got to the mobile.
Wild Rift is a League of Legends mobile game. There's like 3 League of Legends mobile games.
Oh, you're right. I'm seeing them now. What is that game?
Did you just say the names?
I can't even see it.
Okay.
That's
amazing.
That was MLBB. Sorry, I couldn't recognize the logo. Honor of Kings.
Yeah, it's a mobile game.
Back over to some of the Free Fire.
That's a mobile game, I think.
Yeah. There was like 5 or 6 of them there, for sure. But there's a whole bunch of non-mobile games. Normal PUBG. There's the new FIFA, Call of Duty, Street Fighter, StarCraft, Fortnite, TFT, Apex, Siege. And
TFT is a mobile game.
I thought TFT. Well, it's both.
It's
right?
I
okay.
thought it's both. Yeah.
I play TFT very frequently. I can guarantee it's a mobile game.
I mean, it probably lends itself more to mobile. I think you're probably right there. I don't know if it started as a mobile game though.
I'm not sure. I found it out due to mobile games because I'm addicted to mobile games.
I haven't found one that I can be happy with myself playing.
No, that's the thing. I play them and 2 weeks later I realize I'm playing it too much and I just uninstall.
I can't even see anything on a mobile anymore. Like if I try to play a game, I wouldn't be able to see anything. Like even with glasses.
I mean, are you okay?
No, I'm fine. Like I don't know what it is, but like, how do I explain? I've got like perfect vision, but my eyes get tired.
Clearly,
really. Let me try this bit. It's like my eyes get tired very quickly, very easily. So like after, like I could probably play for like a very small amount of time at the start of the day, but if it was like in the evening, I'm just like, yeah, there's no way I can't see anything. No,
interesting. The Game Boy thing. Did you have the Game Boy thing where you had the plastic thing that went over the top of it?
With the light on, yeah.
Does that help your eyes? Maybe you could have that on this for your phone.
I didn't help back then. It certainly won't help now.
Someone asked the question about which game had like the better spectator functionality, and instead of that, I'll ask you guys, what is the best game mode? Yeah, what is the best game mode to cast?
Oh, you're talking about Quake now.
Yeah.
I mean, Duel is. It is Duel, and if anyone says
which
anything else, they're
version
wrong.
of Duel?
Because
we had a few.
Almost any. Almost
Choose
any.
one.
Like historically, Duel has always been the best and easiest to cast because you have access to the most information at one time.
You know how many of your CTF friends are about to block you with that answer?
I love CTF. I absolutely love CTF, but there have very rarely been any like useful spectator features for it, and like communicating that's an absolute mess. Yeah. It's better than other team modes, but sorry, Lethal. Your answer is valid, but if it's not Duel, I won't respect it.
That is fine. It was going to be dual anyway. But what I was going to add to it, like, I don't like obviously the time limit dual is always my go-to, but I can deal with like sacrifice and CTF in small doses. That's fine. But I think if I got more into it, it'll be okay. But dual, yeah, would always be a number one priority. With sacrifice or CTF or just any team games like in 4v4, it's very, very difficult to kind of have time to analytically dissect any kind of gameplay. It's literally just full on. Combat here, then absolutely everywhere. There's like absolutely no chance. Even in duel, sometimes if it's on a small map like I don't know CK or Deep Embrace, depending on which players are fighting against each other, there might be a moment for a minute or two where you have absolutely no time to dissect any of that gameplay, and you have to move on to the next battle and the next combat, which they're getting themselves involved in. So it's like really, really difficult. But you won't get any color casting in team games like
unless I'm the one casting it. If I'm the one, I can do it. But I'd have to be observing too, because I would just follow one player. If you do that, you can analyze it. But the way we do it, we usually don't have any control of the players, so we just switching POVs every 3 seconds, and it becomes impossible to analyze anything. Arian is asking, do you think going back to that round-based duel style would be good with the state of Quake Champions is right now? And I just want to preface that by saying, round duel is my favorite game mode of duel. It's my favorite version of duel. Although I understand why it's not ever going to be in a tournament again.
Yeah, the only problem is that way that it fits into a tournament. Like
it's impossible,
you
logistics-wise.
You don't have a guaranteed ending point. You needed some new mechanics. You needed something there that would definitely speed it up.
A coin flip at 2 minutes in.
Well, start despawning items. Add a quad somewhere. Like
a quad would do a lot.
Something ridiculous, and just get something that attracts both the players to a certain point on the map, and if they don't go for that point, then the other one becomes seriously disadvantaged. The equivalent of a team killing Roshan in Dota or whatever it happens to be. It's that they're getting something that is going to help them then in the next fight make it really disadvantageous for the next team. I think I agree that if they had that round-based duel would be, they should never have gotten rid of it.
But you Lethal. Do you like round-based duel?
They were too scared. They wanted to go back to the safe.
Calm down, Zoot. I'm asking Lethal now. Keep him chill.
Let him vent.
Not take risks.
Let him vent.
Do you like round duel, Lethal?
I think, me personally, I don't know from the spectator's perspective, I enjoyed playing time limit duel, but round-based, I enjoyed spectating more, if that makes sense. I think that's just from my personal perspective. I only got to commentate round-based once, and that was back in 2017. And then when I came, I did some bits and pieces in terms of twos of the Go Forward Cups in 2018-19, but only a handful. And then when he came back in 2020 with the QPL, it was all time limit. But that's just my perspective. I enjoy, playing time limit over round based, but I enjoy round based more because you don't know what's going to come out of it, and you haven't got something where one player's just going absolutely crazy, going up 12-1 with 6 minutes left remaining, and you're sitting there scratching or playing with your thumbs, thinking like, what we're going to do now for the next 6 minutes or anything like that. That's the only many downfalls.
One thing that I bloody loved about round limit duel, and part of it is to do with the state of the game, was just some of the cheese tactics. The dire orb kills that you could just do like off the spawn. There was just some great cheese in there that just made for some excellent clips and just made it you want to share it. But I think like people like Strengths were losing their shit so much that that's where the negative feedback is like, just ignore that because it's funny, it's hilarious. Like have that kind of excitement. If the game then became actually a lot harder because you didn't have these weird get out of jail free cards.
I thought that was great. If they market the game, if they develop the game just for the fun of it, and then add esport on top, that's fine. But if you start marketing game only for esports, that's it. The fun is gone completely. Yeah. And Kovac was saying like the problem with the FPS duel, but I will apply that to team mode as well, is that they follow Quake 3 weapon balance, and thus everything is like a chaotic FFA. In Quake world, it's a lot structured, and you could say intelligent things about the game as the situation changes. And that was in Quake Champions, like team modes don't really have much strategy, right? It's a lot of fighting. In Quake Live, it's kind of the same, but in Quake Live, for instance, the machine gun does 4 damage, right? You spawn with machine gun. It started with 5, but we realized it was OP, and every game was a success fest, so we dialed it back to 4. But in Quake World, there's not even a machine gun, right? You spawn with like a weapon that barely does any damage. So people have to actually get weapons, and weapons have like a 30-second respawn timer. It's really hard to get weapons, so people are like, teams are not as chaotic.
Second respawn is awful.
It's great now for team games. It should be mandatory, because else it's just a shit show.
This is a level of like elitism within Quake, which
but that's
really
the thing.
Like pisses me off.
For competitive only.
It's
competitive.
Too much. It's like, get over yourself.
See, you say this because you are bad at the game, Zoot. If you were good at the game, you would have another opinion.
No. It's just someone who's like a little bit too into music, you know, and they're like, I really like it when this guy plays the bloody acoustic guitar with his testicles and everything. Oh, look at the arpeggio.
As a CTFer, it's the difference between 4v4 and 5v5, right? 5v5 is chaotic and there's no strategy, and 4v4 is actually this.
4v4 is better than 5v5.
There you go. You agree with me. You just don't know how to phrase it.
No, but
and with that said, guys, I think we have to leave now before Zoot starts yapping again.
Oh my god!
No, I like it when he vents. I want him to keep going.
3v3 the best.
Is this our own podcast now? Are we one of those
guess
people
so.
now that has
I mean,
a podcast?
you're welcome to come every week.
To do this podcast though.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
can cast the games. I'll do the podcast.
We don't cast games here. This is just a podcast.
You had your own podcast before, didn't you? I think once upon a time.
Did we?
Did we?
No?
I mean, we've
done so many things that I don't know.
Like, probably our podcast were like the hour and a half breaks between some games we had to have, and we're like, right, let's talk about something now.
I remember we casted games. At least I casted games without even having the game open at some point, because we were just casting so much every day that I didn't even need to be in game anymore.
Yeah, that's where, like, going back to what we were talking about, like really early on in this, is just the ridiculous levels of casting that we were doing. That felt like the really, like the grassroots way to get into commentary was just by doing it over and over and over again. And I don't know how casters get into commentary anymore. Honestly, I don't know how you.
I think it's like that. On that way of things. I think if you've seen some people where they've just come from out of nowhere, they'd have to absolutely grind their ass off. They would go through like, they'll cast open qualifiers. They would cast like anything grassroots leads into like that kind of tier 3 and above kind of echelon. Or you get some pros who just once they've retired, they're just instantly placed on the analyst desk, and if they find out they're actually a lot more talented than they expected in front of a camera, they'll get them to cast and all that.
Actually, 10 times more competitive than it used to be, though.
Yeah, it's a lot more saturated now. Yeah, it's much harder, in my opinion.
It was already hard like 10 years ago. So yeah. Anyway, sorry.
The worst part about those times, we were casting like 5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Every week. And we never got any money for it because there was no money to give away at that point.
For a long time, I didn't know you could make money from casting.
Yeah.
So I was just doing it because I enjoyed it. Like,
And when we
was like my first year of casting was me. I was like, oh shit, I could commercialize this. What?
We didn't even have Twitch back then. We had own TV and Justin TV, right? Yeah.
Well, it's like nowadays, even then, like, because we're all very old school in terms of like being competing or casting for so long, we still do it for the love of the game. Like, we don't ever do it, from a financial perspective, anything like that.
Speak for
some
yourself.
People who are quite new. Oh, thank you very much. Some people from a new perspective can come in and will do it for that. But like for all of us, though, it's entirely different. Especially being passionate for like 2 decades now, something like that.
And with that said, we will now finally finalize the stream, because Zoot has to leave and he doesn't want to be here any longer.
Sorry.
Sorry,
I kept bringing up new topics, though. I kept talking about new things. I actually really interested, but I do genuinely have to go. So, yeah.
Have you guys considered casting other games? I mean, Lethal has casted a ridiculous list of games. But how many games have you casted?
Probably about 15, 20 games now, something like that.
I'll tell you what I would cast if I had the time. I would cast badminton.
Would you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I play quite a lot of badminton now.
I'm closing the stream.
I would cast a real sport.
That's not even a real sport. Tennis is a real sport. Badminton it's not even a real sport.
Gold medal game, men's singles and women's singles on tomorrow. Watch it. You'll be blown out of the water. It's so good.
Okay, goodbye, guys.
Close the bloody stream.
Goodbye, guys.
See you later.